God bless everybody today. It's October 21st of 2023. I want to give you a update on all the different moving parts in the Middle East and how it's affecting Israel and the surrounding areas. Um, so let's get into a number of these stories. I think this will give you a good overview of what's happening out here. So the conflict between Israel and Gaza, let's start there. Israel now has planned on stepping up their attacks. They're getting ready to do their occupational invasion. They have to do this because they have to go through each home, building, um, tunnel, every facility on the ground and systematically go through and remove the threat, as well as try to rescue as many hostages and remove as many weapons and other things that they have to do while they're going systematically through these homes. And so there's a lot going on there on the ground, and this is going to take potentially months to do this. This is not an overnight sensation, and it's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to be horrific on the ground to have to deal with trying to go through these areas and rescue these people. They did get basically 20 trucks through the Gazan border from Egypt. Um, this is going to cause a lot of friction with Turkey, because Turkey doesn't believe they're getting enough relief up through Gaza, which is this area down in through here of Israel, and this is the border of Egypt, as you can see on this nice little card they just brought up. That's sort of nice. And so just realize that this relief is starting to come in, but it's been 2 weeks since the original attack, and they have to be careful what kind of relief they're giving the Hamas, the Gazan people, because the Hamas runs the government, and so whenever they talk about the Gazan government, it's actually Hamas. So they're even trying to hide the title of who actually runs this government. But anyway, based on this article, you can see there's been a large loss of life. And this attack originally happened on October 7th, where Hamas went in and killed, 1,000 plus Israelis, and did horrific thing to their babies and their women and other things. And so Israel started to retaliate around the 9th. They started to go against Hamas. It took them a little while to weed out all the people that were in their country. And so by the 9th, they were actually going back in. That's important on my paradigm that I've shown you on when that was going to start, or at least we would see an attack by Michael or Israel onto the proxies of Iran. Not necessarily attacking Iran, but the proxies of Iran. And when you look at the Bible and they talk about the kings of Persia, it's not just Iran, it's the proxy and those governments that run Hamas, Hezbollah, Lebanon, and all these other Houthis, different governments that are part of this group of kings. And so you need to understand what he means by that. But as you can see, all the different carnage that's happened, we're not going to get into a lot of that. I don't like to look at the suffering portion of this. There's going to be plenty of suffering in this, and you are going to have to get used to this as you move forward into this story God's playing out in front of us. So let's look at some of these other articles. So Turkey's been basically, since the time of this attack and just shortly after, Israel indicated that they were going to do an occupation invasion to weed out Hamas. Turkey's been trying to get aid into this country because they want to protect the Muslims. Look, Turkey wants to protect the Muslims. He does not care about Israel. He will not care about Israel. He's not a friend of Israel, and you need to watch Turkey. He's going to be a real problem as we move forward here. So Turkey's ready to send Palestinian aid, but it's difficult to deliver. And I thought this was really interesting because I think the way they're going to use these corridors, because they're not getting up a lot of their supplies up through Egypt, will be they'll blockade the Mediterranean Sea between Tyre and Gaza, and they'll blockade that all off so that they can run supplies down that coastline even though Israel's there, Cypress is there, and they've joined Turkey, and so we've got these militaries coming in, our groups are coming in, but if they blockade a lot of this off, that will force us towards Egypt and to the west, and Israel will be blockaded down into their little zone around their country, and so Turkey will just funnel supplies down through that corridor there, and so I think that's going to be a problem. I'll show you on that map later. I also thought it was interesting that after sort of indicates that Turkey is prepared to send humanitarian aid to Palestinians hit by the conflict centered in Gaza, but it is very hard to deliver it under the certain current circumstances because they're not allowing aid in. There's no way to fly it in. I mean, there's a lot going on there. And this is the Turkish defense minister talking on Thursday. After a surprise attack by Hamas militants from the Gaza Strip on Israel on Saturday, Turkish President Erdogan said that Turkey was making the necessary preparations to deliver humanitarian aid to the region without elaborating. So he doesn't have a lot of options here, and so the way he's going to get his supplies in is he's going to create a corridor through the Mediterranean Sea, and he's going to create a blockade, as this happened in the past during Alexander's time. They blockaded not only Tyre because they had to actually siege it, but they won't have to this time too much, not like they did before, and they're going to have to get to Gaza. And so this is going to be a real problem for Turkey to help these Muslims any other way but to create a corridor down through this area. And in this article, Erdogan's been very vocal in his opinion that Israel should stop the attacks on Gaza against his Palestinian brothers and his Muslim brothers. And so this is amounting to genocide in Erdogan's eyes. And so he's posting on X or Twitter and all these different platforms. He's running a propaganda war here at this point against Israel and us. And he indicates right here, he noted our region needs to be saved as soon as possible from this frenzy of insanity encouraged by Western countries and in which Western media organizations. I reiterate our call to Israel administration never to expand the scope of these attacks against civilians and to immediately stop its operations that amount to genocide. Genocide's a strong word. He's genociding the Kurds, but yet he's concerned that we're going to go down into Palestine and somehow and genocide his people, or the Muslims. He says, adding that Ankara is working to end the fighting between Israel and Palestinians before it reaches the point of no return, and Israel's not going to back down. So this man has some really tough decisions on what he's going to do as we move forward. He's going to invade Syria and Iraq, as I've been telling you for some time. Mainly Syria is going to be his main focal point because he's going to come into that tip of Turkey, as we've talked about on some of my other videos. When that pooling occurs, the Kurds are going to come and do a counteroffensive against him that fails. They're going to be pushed to the east, and then he's going to come down into Syria through Lebanon, actually around Jerusalem, into Gaza and Egypt, because Egypt's not being friendly to the Muslims that he's trying to protect right now. So he's going to make them pay also. So Erdogan, this was 6 hours ago, had a meeting with the Hamas leaders, say, hey, we're going to come help you. Whatever it takes, we're going to come help you. We're probably not like the U.S. that's going to back down against Israel and not really come to help them in the end here, but we're going to come help you. And it's going to, regardless of how we do it, by land, sea, air, or whatever, we're going to find a way to get to you, okay? And so It indicates that Erdogan discussed Gaza in a phone call, which Gaza is Hamas. Okay, you just got to realize that they're run by Hamas. They were elected government into this area, and so when you see these people talking about a free Palestine, they're talking about supporting Hamas. Hamas is the elected government at this time, and they were supported. So when people talk about Hamas going across and into Israel and killing all these people and literally kidnapping and doing all these things, you're talking about the government that was supporting, these people are supporting this government. So it's a real problem. Erdogan, he had this phone call with this Palestinian militant group, Hamas, this leader. He's talking about ceasefire elements, but that's not going to happen because Israel's getting ready to right now at this very moment. They've greenlighted intervention into the country or into that area itself. The migration of people that have gone on, to try to get them out of the area has gone on for a few days or so, a week or whatever, and so um, they're Israel's ready to go in, and so Erdogan told this leader that he would find a way that he was going to reach Gaza with humanitarian aid and possible treatment of their wounded in Turkey. Okay, you're taking Gaza or Hamas fighters to Turkey to treat them as wounded, or they're treating their wounded there. So he's an ally of Hamas or the Muslims. He's not a friend of Israel. He's not a friend of yours. And I think this is extremely important. I've been talking about the humanitarian aid that they're trying to get down in from Egypt up into Gaza. That hasn't been happening. It's just finally they got 20 semis through this access point for 2 million people or whatever is going on up there. It's going to take time to help these people, even if we did have the ability. And they are a radicalized Muslim group of people that attacked Israel. And so the question is, why would you give them um, financial support? You might want to help the refugees that are coming out, but Egypt's not allowing those people into their country, and no one wants these Gazan Hamas supporter people, and so this is going to be a problem as they're getting pancaked up against the Egyptian border. But Erdogan um, talked to the leader of Egypt, which is al-Sisi. They discussed this. Erdogan's not happy about this. I'm telling you right now, Egypt is going to come under duress as they get down in, as Turkey moves down into Gaza. He's going to go into Egypt. Egypt will not have the ability, as it indicates in the Bible. They just will not have the ability. And if you look at Alexander the Great or the Ottomans, Egypt fell quickly, and so it will fall the same way this time. And so Turkey's in all these areas already setting up all of his connections so that he can be down in the Middle East and be the humanitarian that he says he's going to be. And I keep telling you, it's a guise. He's going to come down as a humanitarian, but he's going to bring a quarter of the world into war if he's the man I think he is, which is the white horseman of Revelation. And I just wanted to bring this article up because this shows you that they've been for some time landing planes of humanitarian aid down into Egypt, and they're not getting them through the border. And so this is really frustrating Erdogan quite a bit. And so he's going to create a naval corridor down to the Gaza, and he's going to blockade that area so that he can funnel supplies, weapons, and whatever possible down into that area. And he will have to eliminate the Hamas leadership, basically, and take it over, because he's going to unite all these countries. So Hamas will sort of fall under, either they will fall under the sword of Turkey or they'll join them. one of the two. But he's protecting the Muslim people down in that area, even though they elected this government. So we'll have to see how that plays out and how Hamas holds up through all this, because they're going to be under a lot of strain of either Israel or Turkey. Turkey right now almost has to support Hamas because they've been the elected leadership of the Muslims down there, and they're going against Israel, and Turkey's going to support them before he will Israel. So you just have to sort of think through all those scenarios. So if you go to the northern border of Israel, you have a number of other problems. You have Hezbollah getting ready to attack them, and I keep saying once Israel does this attack into Hamas, into Palestine, we would then see a Hezbollah attack. They've already started these preemptive attacks. They're launching missiles from everywhere from Yemen, Syria. They're launching them from West Bank. They're launching them from Lebanon, um, Golan Heights, all these different places. You're seeing different missiles being launched at Israel. This is going to escalate. Israel will have to fight a 2 or 3-sided war here as we move forward. Um, they're lucky in a way because they border Jordan, and so there is a gap between the southern and the northern side, even though they're getting launched from Yemen, Syria, and Iraq, and other areas. Iran is not going to attack them personally. They're going to use these proxies to the point where they're going to force an attack on Iran, but not necessarily through Iran or its attack from Iran itself. So we're going to look at the Syrian live map and see how this might play out, because Turkey is going to come down and pull their forces down into here. They have to if they're going to come south. And you have all this activity here between Russia, Assad, and different groups. So when Turkey breaks down into Syria, as they're going to do, they told us for some time they're going to come down into Syria. They're going to do an invasion. They want a 70-kilometer buffer zone right now, so that's going to take them down into these areas down in through here. So this whole northern border is going to be basically hit by Turkish artillery and different things like that. And so they're trying to control this whole border so that they can keep the threats out of their country. It's basically what's happening. But as you can see, this is really starting to intensify here. And so you're having troop movements to these areas from Turkey. They're amassing armor here. They've already had a lot of armor and troops amassed in these areas because they've been fighting this war since, well, forever. So they don't have to do a lot of movement of troops. The troops are already there. The armor's already there. All they have to do is just mobilize it into one area and come down into this area. And so this is happening in this area, and this is going to be the problem. And once he starts to look like he's getting ready to invade, we're going to see those Kurds come over the top, because you had a Kurdish problem here also that's going to happen. Both of these groups will fail, or all these groups will fail, because Turkey will come down in here. The Kurds will fall to the east. Assad and Russia will be pushed off also. Now, I talked about how Turkey had been doing a soft target phase. He called it phase 1. It's eliminating people, softer targets, things like that. But now he's into infrastructure and hard target facilities, power structures, command centers, different things like that. And so he started this second and third phase of his operation so that he can start to soften this up and create that 70-mile buffer zone, 70-kilometer buffer zone that he's been talking about. And he launched this campaign on October 5th. Okay, and so you need to realize this. He originally spearheaded the original attack on 2019 on October 9th. We talked about that. And it directly targets the Kurdish People's Protection Units and the PKK, and that on Wednesday, Erdogan vowed to intensify strikes against Kurdish fighters in Syria and Iraq. Okay, and so he's in the process of softening up these areas right now so that he can do an invasion here anytime soon, which will work with his um, naval blockade that he's getting ready to do down around Tyre and Gaza. And so he's going to drive this land force all the way from Turkey down into Tyre and then around Jerusalem to Gaza and into Egypt before he's done. I'm trying to show you all these different articles because I think it's important to get the overall picture of what's going on the ground and how this is going to affect this area in the next few months. Turkey, in this article, launches new airstrikes in northern Iraq as Iraqi defense minister visits Ankara. So Turkey's sending a massive message to Syria and Iraq to stay out of his way, that he's going to go in, he's going to do this. He's targeting all kinds of different Kurdish groups, areas, power structures, different things like that. And so this is going to cause all kinds of problems, other refugee issues and things like that as this keeps playing out in front of us. And I think this article is extremely important because there's a motion to extend Turkey's military operations in Iraq and Syria published in this official gazette. This was during a Turkish National Assembly on the 17th, today's the 21st, and the decision was published in this newspaper on October 19th that they would expand or maintain these operations in to basically Syria and Iraq for 2 more years is what it came out to. It was passed with a 357 votes and against 164 against it. So it did pass. And so on this very date, which is interesting, here we go back to the October 9th. We see this date popping up a lot. The motion on October 9th was presented to the National Assembly with Erdogan's signature, and I talked about that on my paradigm, which we're going to see here fairly quickly, that October 9th was an extremely important date. Not only was it that you had a number of events that led up to this. You had the bombing in Ankara on October 1st. On October 7th, you saw Hamas come into Israel. And then it had indicated on my paradigm, as I was showing you, and I'll show you this in just a second, between September 18th and October 9th, we would see this build up against Israel, and then Israel would launch an attack on the 9th against these proxy groups, which they did, because it took a couple days for them to clean everything up, and then they started to do this invasionary process into Gaza. And then what happened on that very day, they indicate, and Israel had indicated they were going to start doing a land invasion soon, which they haven't done yet, but now they're green lighted that. That Erdogan immediately came out and posed a threat to both us and Israel immediately and said, "You've got to stop this potential occupation of Gaza, and if you don't, I'm going to do something about it." And so he's in the process on a multi-front process of controlling the whole Middle East here. You're talking about, Gaza, Syria, Iraq. He owns Afghanistan. He's up in Azerbaijan, Armenia. He's down in northern Africa. Turkey's everywhere over there, and you're watching this form into a Daniel 8 first, and then Ezekiel 38 and 39 as you move forward by probably the end of this year, you're going to see a siege on Jerusalem. So to go to the paradigm, you want to go to endofdaysurvival.com, and you'll see these PDFs just about about just underneath the main title there. It's the 4th PDF. When you click on that, that brings up the paradigm chart. And so this is the paradigm chart for the next, what is it, 1440 days. We're going to see how that plays out. And basically the 1440 days goes from October 17th to today. And so today would be, we're moving into October 22nd. So on October 22nd is 1440 days. When you come into this area here, that's where we are here. Now I have adjusted some minor things. I just made the chart more sense. It was a little dyslexic in my world because I had a few of these things like lumped together in here, but it was all basically part of the same time. So what I did was I just moved spring of 2023 over just so it fit in the right time slot, because you're going to see the fortunes of Israel start to wane on the spring of 23. I've talked about this. I haven't changed anything other than just moving around so they made more sense. So I talked about how in spring of 23 we'd see the fortunes of Israel start to wane, either through famine, plagues, locusts, financial stress on their country through military, all these different things, but their fortune would start to wane. And he talks about a third of the population dying potentially by plagues, famines, and different things like that. And then we had these date stamps that I've been talking about. So Erdogan on the September 16 indicated that he was getting ready to threaten to leave the EU. And then just shortly after that, Daniel would have had that vision that I was talking about, how I built those date stamps out of these passages, went from Gregorian to Hebrew calendar dates. That gave us these very specific dates. I posted that months out before all this happened. Had just changed them just within the last few months anyway. So we came up with the September 18th date, and Daniel was sickened for 3 weeks prior to having this vision from God, which basically said 21 days later he has this vision. So he's sickened for 21 days and he has this vision. And Michael has been fighting against Iran, okay, for 21 days. Now, Daniel had to see this attack on Israel, so he knew that something was going on, and he's in the Iranian government at that time through Cypress, and so he would have known something was coming to his own country. Daniel is sickened for these 3 weeks, and then on this 21st day, which ended up being October 9th, which is amazing because Israel then starts to launch counteroffensive against Hamas on this day. 21 days later, from September 18th, we would see Michael go against Iran, and then it indicates in Daniel 10 that he would send the king of Greece after that. And if you go to Daniel 8, you realize that Greece is the goat that destroys the two-horned ram, which is the Kurds and Iran. So what would happen there is you would see the Medes or the Kurds align with Iran, which is Persia. And when you see the Kurds and Iran form an alliance, you would see Turkey crush them. That will happen shortly in the next few months, based on this paradigm and how this would play out. And then we have this build up to this December 22nd date where Erdogan would literally be besieging Jerusalem with 10 full nations. Once he gives them that power for 1 hour, then we would see literally a sixth seal potentially break around the beginning of January or the first part of next year. This date here is extremely interesting because this is 10 Tevet, which was the besieging of Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar during the first temple attack and the destruction of the first temple in 589 to 587 BC. And so that's extremely important. And so you're in this gap between October 9th and December 22nd. And then I had that other date that I talked about, which I thought was extremely important. So you're walking into the 22nd here, and I talked about this November 5th date and how we potentially could see an attack on ISIS, which is that area up around Turkey where all that activity was going on between Assad and Russia and all that. And I'll show you a map of all this again here in a second. So I saw this build up and thought, well, it's interesting that if we see a battle of ISIS as we did in Alexander's time happen in the future or in the next few weeks, when was that battle and how did that affect us in the past? How would that affect us in the future? And this date came up. So this is a pretty high watch date for me that we would potentially not see necessarily an invasion by Turkey on this very date, but Turkey would pull their armies down into that area around where all that activity is happening between Russia and Assad, and the Kurds would do a counteroffensive, or something would happen like that on this very date. That would then force Erdogan to do an invasion into Syria, and that would then start this drive down into Lebanon to Tyre and then down into Gaza, okay? And that's pretty important because when you look at this on the map, I think this matters. So let's just look at the map real quick and sort of see how this is all laying out. So originally you had the attack from Gaza into Israel on October 7th. Took a couple of days for Israel to recover from that. They reattacked into Gaza around October 9th, which was important on my paradigm. Then we started to see this amplify. Hezbollah starts to then attack. Turkey starts to threaten immediately that if Israel starts to invade Gaza, this is going to be a problem and they will find a solution to get humanitarian aid down into this area. So what happens then? Turkey then starts to align with Cypress, starts to create a blockade on this area through here to cut off our groups and others that might come into this area. And also, if Cyprus and Turkey blockade this area around Tyre, which would be actually down here, and Turkey and Cyprus do another blockade down in through here, that would lock down Israel's military to a certain degree. That would create a humanitarian corridor down into Gaza. Turkey is pooling their armies down in this area here. You've got all that bombing and different things going on here. The Kurds are going to come over the top, try to stop this invasionary force. That will fail. They will fall to the east. Assad and the Russian groups would also fall to the east because this would then be basically taken over by Turkey. Turkey would then come down into Lebanon to Tyre. And then because they have a blockade here and here, they aren't going to have to worry about naval problems except for Israel in through here because our ships are off to the west too far. Turkey would come down into Lebanon, skirt around Jerusalem, and into Gaza, down into Egypt. A lot of other things are happening because at the same time, you've got missiles coming in from Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, West Bank, Golan Heights up in this area here, Hamas over here, and Yemen down here because you got the Houthis launching missiles towards Israel also. So you've got a lot of working parts going on here. But what you need to be watching is Turkey. Turkey is going to start their land invasion up here, and they're going to have this naval blockade and basically protection and attack, and pretty much there's not going to be a whole lot left to Tyre, Lebanon, in Lebanon before this is done. And they'll also be doing a blockade and cutting off everything here that matters to them from Gaza so that Turkey can bring in supplies, support, whatever they need to do to help with the Hamas government here, since they're the one in control of the Muslims down in here, and you just saw that meeting with Hamas and Erdogan, and so all this is starting to play out into a is Daniel 8, Ezekiel 8:39 prophecy, and what that means is this, and I'll just walk this through this real quick. Turkey's going to align with 10 full nations of Muslims and end up on Israel's doorstep. But Turkey will come down into here first, down into Lebanon, take Tyre out, come around Jerusalem, into Gaza, down into Egypt. Egypt will capitulate. Turkey will bring their forces back. Now they leave a sixth of the armies down in Egypt, as it indicates in the Bible. They come back to Tyre, then shoot over to Erbil. All this is being bombed by Turkey. So they'll shoot over to Erbil. The Kurds will fall down to Baghdad or to Shush. Daniel 8 will happen because the Kurds will align with Iran. They'll be destroyed in this area here. Turkey will drive their armies all the way back to Israel, and you'll have 10 full nations because you'll have a massive alignment at that time, because they all know at that moment in time Turkey's going to go against Israel. And since Erdogan's the white horseman, and when he's devastated on the sixth seal, shortly after December 22nd, I show around January 6th or whatever that date is, we would have a sixth seal event that we will see those Muslims cave, because they're going to see 10 full nations basically destroyed by the hand of Jesus through the wrath of the Lamb, or Revelation 6:16. They will be in total disarray and chaos, and it will take them time to regurgitate, and that's what I mean. You will see 10 full nations of Muslims die on that event, called a sixth seal event, and then a residue will form, and that's where you get those 4 regions, and from one of those 4 regions a little horn pops up and it capitulates the other 3 regions, which is basically the beast kingdom. And when you look at the beast kingdom, that includes Libya, Sudan, you've got Iran over here, Afghanistan, probably Turkmenistan, you got Azerbaijan, which is absorbing Armenia up here. You've got, now Syria and Iraq aren't in part of the 10 nations, but they're included in this area. And that's another thing. If you look at Iran, they're very susceptible to Turkey. Turkey's right here, borders with them. Kurdistan groups are along this region here on the western border of Iran. But Turkey controls Azerbaijan, which is where the Ulai River starts, ends up running down here, which is where Daniel 8's prophecy ends up, down in this area here. Turkey controls basically the Caspian Sea, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan through the Taliban. They're going to own Iran here before long. They control areas like Oman and Yemen through the Houthis. The Houthis are in Yemen specifically. They're going to own Sudan and Libya in this, even though Egypt and Saudi Arabia really aren't part of the 10 nations. They're in the middle of all this. Jordan is also. And so it's going to be easy for Turkey to basically destroy Iran. And if you come into this Caspian Sea, Tehran, or the capital of Iran, is right here. So it's like 50 miles from the coast here. So any naval ships up in here can easily send drones and bombs onto Tehran easily, as they're literally being pummeled by multiple different areas under Turkey's control. And you have to understand, as we've talked many times, Turkey is the Muslim leader of the world, and so they will follow him because their main goal is the elimination of Israel, or at least the control of the Temple Mount. So God bless. Keep an eye on this one. This one is moving quickly. You are now into the phase where Israel is getting ready to go into this next phase of occupation into Gaza, which is going to change this whole picture because Turkey will finally get into this war. God bless. Find the open door. Find Jesus. Be safe out there, folks. This one's going to get really tough here soon.